Right then, I've got an absolute treat for you guys at the moment. I've got Andy Cole joining me over Zoom, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat about what's going on at United and maybe a couple of memories from the treble season as well. Looking ahead to this weekend's game then, Andy, it might have obviously been the Carabao Cup in midweek, but we saw Mason Greenwood, we saw Marcus Rashford get their first goals of the campaign. As a former striker yourself, how important is it for these lads to get off the mark in a season?
It's always nice to get off the mark as quick as possible. I think that gives you more confidence for the next game, confidence for the rest of the season as well. So long may it continue for the pair of them. I think that when they both came on, they both looked really sharp. Mason does his thing, and so did Marcus. So fingers crossed, and they'll continue to do what they're doing.
We saw them all three of the attackers, including Tony Marshall last season. They had unbelievable campaigns individually. Where do you think these lads could end up stacking up, considering their age, in relation to partnerships and forward lines from United in the past, obviously, including the brilliant one that we saw with you and Yorke?
Hopefully they're going to be at the club for many, many years. And hopefully they're going to get as many goals as possible. If you look at the talent they have and the ages, they're all at, all at tender ages, And I think last season that they proved they can all score goals. But for me personally, they just got to believe that they can do it. They've got to want to continue to play good football with each other. And I think looking from the outside, looking in, watching them play, that the chemistry looks really good. Looks like they enjoy each other's company and they all want to do well for each other.
We saw Luke Shaw in the last couple of weeks come out and sort of demand signings, and we obviously know that the fans are demanding the signings. How important do you reckon it is for United to bring in one or two before the window closes?
I think it's always important to bring new players into the club, but then it's always important to bring players in that are going to make you better. For me personally, I don't think you should bring players into the club if the players of the standards that you already have. I think when you bring players, you're always going to try and raise the bar. Obviously my time working under Alex Ferguson, always try to raise the bar. I remember when he brought in Yorke, Yap, and Jesper. Did that raise the bar? Or did it? Because that year we went on to win the treble. So those are the kind of impacts you're looking off players that are going to make you better, make everyone stand up and have a look at each other and say, these guys are real quality.
When you're a player at United and they bring in big signings like that, like when Dwight Yorke came in, do you worry for your place, or are you excited to try and get to play with them?
Me, I was very excited because in the end I was looking at it and turned around and saying to myself, look, if anyone's coming in to replace me, they're only going to make the team a better team. And that was my thought process in the end. It wasn't about me. I wasn't concerned about it being me, but just to make Manchester United better.
You obviously played with Ollie. What have you made of the job that he's done at United so far?
I think Ollie's done a real good job. Considering when he took over from Mourinho, the noises that the camp wasn't very happy. Obviously we weren't playing the most attractive football. Ollie's gone in, settled the ship. A year later, we've ended up finishing in 3 semi-finals, finishing 4th in the Premier League, and people still having a go at him. I'm not quite sure what everyone was expecting, because I know in football in terms of there's definitely no magic wand and there's definitely no entitlement, because we're Manchester United. That means we are bound to win the league every season. It doesn't happen like that.
We've seen you play solo as a striker. We've seen you obviously famously play in a partnership. What do you think are the main differences with those two positions now in modern football? And would you maybe like to see United go back to a two-striker system sometimes?
I think the difference is when you're playing solo, for me, I used to call it the graveyard shift. Because you're up there by yourself and, a lot's expected of you. And I always loved playing in a partnership, because I always trusted someone that, whoever it was, I could play with them in a partnership. But then, if you look at a lot the way the team's playing now, everyone can accommodate whatever position it is, and everyone can always try and get the best out of each, by not just playing as a centre forward, but moving out to the left or moving out to the right.
What do you make of the changes that we've seen in the Premier League last couple of years with the introduction of things like VAR? Do you reckon you'd have enjoyed playing with VAR? Or
No,
do you think
I don't think I'd enjoy VAR, because I think the majority of my goals would have been offside. You know, because I'm seeing some of these goals getting disallowed. I'm seeing some of these handballs. I'm turning around and saying to myself, absolute nonsense. But, you know, someone's making out of it and it's keeping someone happy. But I think VAR, I'm not struck on it. I'm really not.
No, I don't think it gets the spirit of a lot of the rules. Like the handball rule and the one that we saw with Victor last weekend wasn't really in the spirit of handball, was it?
No, his handball is a handball. But if you're running all of a sudden and your hand cannot come up to whereby it's past your chest and someone says handball, how are you supposed to run? You might as well take your arms off.
Yeah. We're making a documentary while you're on about Sir Alex Ferguson. What is your favourite memory of Sir Alex Ferguson, or anecdote or line that he used in a dressing room, something that we might not have heard before?
Well, I think you would have heard it all before. You know, he's a fantastic manager. I was just thinking about certain things this morning. I always knew when I was in trouble with the gaffer, because I knew if he called me Cole, I'm in trouble. You know, so I was having a little chuckle out today when I was thinking about obviously playing football and all that. And, you know, he was an unbelievable manager, though.
What do you miss most about United and playing?
You know, I don't miss playing. I'm not like my mate Peter Pan. I knew I had to grow up at some stage. I knew I had to retire at some stage. And I've done that. I think my biggest miss is the banter. I will always miss the banter. I miss the lads. I miss, like, even if pre-season was the most hated time for me in the footballing calendar, I always miss going in for that first day of pre-season and looking forward to 10 months of banter. Those are the kind of things that I miss. I don't miss the paychecks. I don't miss anything like that. I miss the real things. The real things.
Was you not a good trainer, Andy?
Good trainer? No, training wasn't one of my strongest attributes. In pre-season, I wasn't that guy who could run around like the rest of the guys, you know. But I did those things to my best of my ability to get myself fit. Training, I did things, you know, to make me be sharp enough for the weekend. But it's some of that I look at now, and I'm getting myself back in the gym, you know. And I miss not being in the gym, but when I was playing, I hated running. So these are the kind of crazy things you go through.
Oh yeah, I see you just got started work with a new PT, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm trying to I'm trying to get myself back to my old self again. But I have so many things that I want to do that I know that possibility of getting closer I can't do. But I have this thing that burns in me that if it outs, I'm in trouble. So I just keep myself going.
Love it. All right, before I let you go then, Andy, obviously last weekend we saw us slip to a very disappointing defeat, almost inexplicable performance from United. Do you expect us to bounce back this weekend against Brighton?
I'm hoping for us to bounce back. But I've said all this morning, you know, nothing is a given in football. All we can hope for is a better performance than last week, but that doesn't mean we're going to be guaranteed 3 points. You know, if we get a better performance, we can say, right, we've got a better performance. Because, you know, Brighton have started decent this season, scoring goals, playing well, and they won't be lying down for Manchester United. So a better performance, yes, please. 3 points, I'll have a very happy weekend.
Buzzing. All right, and one last word then. One of my favourite goal celebrations of all time is your goal in the Nou Camp, and that celebration as you run off, giving it that as you go off. Tell me what went through your head at that moment.
What went? Because I was messing about the night before in training. So as I was messing about, the gaffer went off on me. He said, "Cole, focus, yeah, and stop messing about." So I said, "Yeah, boss." So if you look at that goal again, there's a forward focus sign. So I said to the chaps that if I score tomorrow, I'm running over to the sign and putting that focus. You know, and then I was fortunate to score at that end, and I ran over and I was pointing at the focus sign. So that was from the night before, and the manager's having a go at me for not focusing in training.
Fantastic. Andy, thank you very much. And obviously the game is available on BT Sport this weekend at 12:30 kickoff. Do not miss it. Manchester United against Brighton. Manchester United legend Andy Cole. Thank you for joining me, Andy.
Cheers, no problem.
See you in a bit. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. Bye now.